Welcome to Fright Night.
It begins 3 years after young Charley Brewster had a near-fatal encounter with a vampire named Jerry. He's attended therapy ever since and has been convinced by Dr. Harrison that Jerry was just a cult leader and that vampires don't exist. The actor Peter Vincent also survived the encounter and now attempts to convince the public of the bloodsucker's existence on his television show Fright Night. Feeling cured of his fear of vampires, the college student throws out all of his protection and goes to visit Peter at his apartment building. His new girlfriend Alex meets the actor for the first time and entertains his belief in vampires. It's not long before Charley witnesses a trio of large crates being offloaded from a truck, which brings back memories of Jerry's coffin. When the couple are leaving, Charley waits for Alex when 4 mysterious people enter the elevator led by the alluring Regine. Despite the obvious signs, Charley remains in denial and gives Alex a lift back to her dorm before they begin making out. As the viewer, we're immediately privy to the information that Regine's a vampire as she enters Charley's mind. Feeling insulted by her boyfriend pulling back, Alex walks the rest of the way to her dorm room alone, being stalked by one of Regine's accomplices. Unable to enter without an invite, the vampire follows a girl leaving, and atop her rollerblades Belle claims the group's first victim. The third vampire, Louie, always takes on the appearance of a wolfman and scales the side of Alex's apartment building. She unknowingly slams her window on his hand, sending the moron tumbling into a bush below, where the human servant Bozworth insults him before consuming life in the form of insects. As her gang begins taking over the neighborhood, Regine visits Charley in the middle of the night, who can't resist but to invite the beautiful lady inside. She's quick to seduce him and drinks his blood when Charley's suddenly lying in bed, but without a mark. He just thinks he was dreaming since she drank through a cut he received from shaving. It looks like he's beginning to relapse in front of Alex, so she stays to watch over Charley during the night as his wound looks to have reopened. The next morning, Charley wakes up overly sensitive to the sunlight and talks to Harrison about the dream. He assures Charley that it's only natural and that Charley should go bowling to blow off steam, where Alex finds him and invites him on a date to the symphony that night, which he agrees to attend. He then leaves her waiting as Charley sees his friend Richie entering a car with Regine and decides to follow them back to Peter's apartment building. Suspecting the worst, Charley climbs a fire escape to peer inside Regine's penthouse. His suspicions are confirmed when the girls drain Richie's blood, revealing themselves as vampires. Terrified that it's happening again, Charley tries to recruit Peter to help him slay the undead. But after all his preaching, Peter doesn't believe that the same thing could happen to the same person twice. He only accompanies him armed with crosses and stakes to protect the kid from getting himself killed as they crash Regine's party. Everyone attending is wearing wax teeth as part of Regine's plan to throw off suspicion. They find Richie, who's alive and well, albeit a little bit pale and with no bite marks on his neck. Regine suddenly makes her entrance and hypnotizes Charley into dancing with her in front of the crowd. She pulls a crucifix from Charley's pocket and isn't harmed but begins transforming into a vampire, then throws it into a mirror and pretends to remove her teeth and contact lenses as part of an act. She introduces herself as an artist in town for some vampire-themed performances, and that attacking Richie was just part of the show. Convinced that he's just paranoid, suddenly Charley remembers his date with Alex and takes off. He leaves Peter behind at the party, who begins noticing people in the corners of the room that appear to be biting necks. Peter goes into hunter mode and draws his pocket mirror to find all of the evidence he needs when the hosts cast no reflection. Attempting to flee, Peter runs into Regine on the stairwell, who uses her vampire speed to prevent him from escaping. She's built up a tolerance to crosses and reveals that she's the sister of the vampire that Peter and Charley killed. She's come to take her revenge after first having her fun, then turns into a bat that flies away, leaving Peter to try warn Charley. He doesn't pick up his phone as he's just being turned away from the symphony for arriving too late. Alex attended the show with Louie, who pretended to also be stood up by his date and walks her home afterwards. A suspicious dog almost gives his identity away but is intimidated by the vampire, who's tasked with killing Alex by his master. But when she gives him a kiss goodnight, he lets her live, telling Bozworth that he just isn't hungry. Charley returns home and falls asleep before having a visit by Regine, who sneaks inside to drink his blood while he sleeps. Peter stays up all night, unable to get him on the phone and too terrified to leave the safety of his home. When the sun rises, he races down to the studio to put out the word, but he finds himself fired as Regine's replaced him on Fright Night. Charley tries to make up with Alex, but he's beginning to show more signs of becoming a vampire and becomes aggressive. She tells him to meet her tonight at the library when a frantic Peter shows up to warn the couple about the vampire invasion, but neither believe him and are still convinced that it's all just part of Regine's act. Peter warns them one last time before running back home, packing up his belongings and getting the hell out of town. Meanwhile, Charley begins to get hungry and resists from biting a neck to go get some pizza. The waitress makes it sound delicious, but the moment Charley tastes garlic, he spits it out and runs away. He visits Harrison, but his doctor didn't come into work today as a news report comes on about Richie being found dead. Realizing that Peter was right, Charley returns to the apartments only to find he's already left, and begins to follow Bozworth into the basement. It leads to the vampire's coffins where Charley tries to stake Belle but gets interrupted by the servant. He's just passing to eat a beetle, before going deeper underground to the Queen's coffin beneath the building's elevator shaft. When Charley goes to stake Regine, she hypnotizes him into leaving the building where he's snapped out of it by a passing car that almost hits him. Alex is waiting at the library and decides to read Bram Stoker's Dracula to understand her boyfriend's obsession better. She's again being stalked by Louie, who makes plans to return if Charley doesn't show up, then tries to kill Charley to prevent him, but the others tell him that he's Regine's to deal with. The goon squad go bowling together and feed on everyone in the alley while enjoying their night, mixing blood with beer. Meanwhile, the host of Fright Night puts on her first performance, in which she dances around and reveals herself as a vampire to the public, but those that don't know just assume Regine's acting with the assistance of cornstarch and makeup. Peter sits alone at a bar when the broadcast comes on and a stranger asks if he recognizes him. This reminds the hunter of who he once was and gives him the courage to march down to the station to slay the vampire. But he goes about it the wrong way by charging her on stage and getting dragged off by police. They presume he's gone crazy with all the years of pretending to hunt vampires and take him away to the state hospital, where a mental patient named Fritzy believes everything the incarcerated stranger says about hunting vampires. At the library, Alex has read all the vampire lore she can get her hands on and enjoys it just as much as Charley. They set up for their dinner date when the Fright Night episode's shown, and Charley begins to get distressed as he knows it's not an act. During Peter's attempted assassination, Charley feels sick, so Alex leaves to get him a drink but runs into Louie. He's done with waiting and attempts to kill Charley, but Alex crams wild roses in his mouth, which she just read as a vampire's weakness. He flees the scene as the two troublemakers get arrested by campus police and thrown in jail. Alex is bailed out by Harrison only to find out that Charley's already had his posted by Regine. They leave to find him and are stopped at a red light in the middle of nowhere to allow Harrison to reveal himself as a vampire. He toys with Alex before he attempts to bite her, but she wallops him with a stone to get away, then takes a splinter from a train track sleeper and plunges it into the doctor's heart. She then assumes his identity to gain access to the hospital and tries to figure out a way to get Peter released. None of it's needed, as Fritzy already has his own plan of bludgeoning the orderly, setting off the alarm, knocking out the guards, and getting the keys to their freedom. Alex and Peter head to Regine's by way of the church, which they rob for holy relics to fight the undead. They get to the apartment building and first enter Peter's room to collect all of the weapons from the hunter's old movies. Now armed for slaying vampires, they climb around the outside of the building to find Charley being bathed by Regine and Belle. He's in a trance and doesn't hear the vampire say that her plans to make Charley immortal so that she can torture him forever. She leaves him in a room to transform into a vampire, while Richie returns after resurrecting in the morgue as the newest bloodsucker. When he's alone, Alex and Peter sneak inside to rescue Charley, but Richie returns, so Pete sprays him in the face with holy water. They attempt to escape when Charley begins acting up, requiring Alex to restrain him with a cloth from the church. Peter's the first to exit, but a hairy Louie locks the window behind him and knocks the hunter off the ledge. He hangs on just long enough for Charley to fire a spear gun through the window into the vampire's heart, killing him. They try to find another way out, but are cornered by the super fast familiar Bozworth and even faster vampire Belle. The giant knocks out Peter and the two hold down Alex and Charley until Regine can arrive. She wants him to bite his girlfriend to make the transformation complete, but Charley resists and sticks Belle's claws into the familiar's stomach. He rips apart to reveal he was just a pile of bugs in a skin suit all along, as the roller Belle leaps at the group, but gets wrapped up in the holy blanket and melts away into a pile of gelatinous mess. This sets off Regine, who's scared away by the sunrise and tries to flee into her coffin by taking the elevator, but Charley uses the spear gun to jam the mechanism and lock her inside. The couple run downstairs to prevent her escape by lining her coffin with communion wafers in the pattern of a cross, as Peter makes his way down the shaft with a crucifix to do something stupid. The vampire's trapped inside, trying to rip her way through the floor until Peter opens a hatch, allowing her to escape. With enough faith, he's now able to startle her back through a hole in the floor, where she's deterred from healing in her coffin by the power of the wafer. She knocks Alex unconscious and attempts to seduce Charley again with the realization that Peter is a coward and is abandoning him, but he's just gone to get a piece of mirror to reflect the sunlight down the shaft. Charley holds the vampire's hand to prevent her from escaping as Regine catches on fire before stumbling into her coffin and exploding on contact with the primed wafers. All three survive the traumatic experience, and sometime later Charley and Alex discuss the events and joke that no one will ever believe their story. They agree to move on with their lives to begin a family together, while being surrounded by a field of roses just in case. And the movie ends.